Okay, we don't quite have everyone back. Okay, well, I popped in and got pulled into a few conversations actually. So it's funny how money does that, right? It's funny how that topic can generate so much conversation. Here we go. Here they're coming back. Teresa Ann and Tammy. There we are. Okay, great. So a really simple experience, a really simple exercise of just a blank page and 2 words. Money is. And so imagine if you did this at the start of a meeting, like your board meeting or prac meeting, or like pick a meeting, right? And just had the opportunity to have everyone kind of dump out what sits in there that's sort of not being expressed, not being admitted, not being celebrated, not being voiced. And it can create enough content and experience in your group to have a 3-hour meeting, to have a 4-hour meeting, to have a multi-meeting experience. Once you get those ideas out and attribute negative and positive, and why someone even thinks something is negative or positive, and the argument or debate that ensues around whether something is negative or positive, and the different ways that we have finished that sentence in our thoughts and our words, in our families, in our communities, in our church and centers. And so I'm curious to know, did anyone have an unusual saying? I heard Alan say money is
Fetishized.
fetishized. And I was like, I don't think I've ever heard that before. That was a really interesting way of putting it. And so we had Cassandra. It seems like an awesome for board retreat. Sure, absolutely. It begins to unpack a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm going to give you some more tools to go with that and to really help your conversations. So was there, other than the money is fetishized, was there any saying that came out in your group that you thought, I have never heard it explained or called that before? Or is this money is fetishized going to be the winner here tonight?
How can you top that?
I have hard to top that. Okay, so how about how money is talked about in your center? If you were to, and I'm going to ask you for one sentence, if you were to say, this is the kind of sentence that I hear, and it can be actual words that people use, or it can be a combination of thoughts and ideas and beliefs and collective consciousness distilled down to one sentence. It could even be the unspoken stuff in your community or your previous community. For Cassandra and Lesia, if you want to use your previous community or your current experience, that's fine. I want you to have the experience of the exercise. So a sentence. And I'm going to say that in my community, the sentiment is, we want more, but we're afraid to have more. Okay, there's more that can be said, but we want more, but we're afraid to have more. Okay, so Teresa, what's the sentence that would sum up the experience in your center?
You mean with respect to money, and I want more? I guess I'm not really.
Yeah. So when you think of describing the way money is viewed or spoken about at your center, put it in a sentence for us.
I'd say money is spoken about openly.
Okay, so we're open about talking about money. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Tammy, how about in your center?
I don't think money is spoken about very well at all in my center. I don't actually, it's a really, I find it to be a hard conversation to have with our center. And the maybe unspoken sentiment is that nobody has enough.
Okay. And maybe even what you just said, you might have nailed it with, it's a hard conversation to have. Like maybe that I can hear that. Like that really talks to me. Karen?
For me, money is the conversation is this is so different now, and thank you very much. We just had a very successful stewardship campaign, and people are saying, "Oh, this feels so much better than having to go to the congregation." So we're on a high.
Okay. And Leslie, do you want to add to that sentiment?
I'm going to speak a little bit to what I hear from the people that aren't saying that, which that's coming from leadership, and it's awesome. But what I still hear from congregants is generally the energy of those other people should give more money to the center. The center needs more money, and people that aren't me should give it.
Okay. That's a fair conversation. Yeah, absolutely. Ellen, would you concur with Teresa, or is there an additional sentiment you'd like to add for your center?
I would definitely concur with her, and then it's kind of what I said in the breakout as well. It's a mechanism.
Okay.
There are things we want to do, places we want to go, and obviously those require money.
Okay, so it's going to get us there. Okay. Cassandra?
Yes, I would like to, since I'm looking at creating my own thing, I'd like to just share what I have run into the most in my own mind about this, and that you don't get into this business for money.
Okay.
And therefore it's hard. And is it even possible to have a sustainable ministry that supports my life?
Okay. Well, you got my ear there, dear. Lasia?
There is a shift taking place in a very positive, good, abundant direction here. However, I think underlying all of that, there is still a lot of fear around money. And a lot of it has to do with there was a massive reserve fund that got burned through over the last several. Really need to be careful because there's only so much.
Okay. Okay. And Stephanie?
If I had to boil the congregation's energy down to one sentence, it would be tell us more.
Okay. Yeah, I've actually been in a environment where I was doing the Emotion of Money workshop, and one of the things that came out is the congregation wanted more information, and the board members were there and they were able to decide how to talk differently about it and report differently and communicate, share differently. That is an interesting sentiment. Okay. I'm going to go back to our sharing here, and we have our grid. So hold your grid handy. We're going to do an exercise with that in just a moment. Okay, so I'm going to send you sort of a summary set of slides, and so you're welcome to take this and use it. And there's some American money there too in some slides. This is our very colorful Canadian money that's plastic. So hold it up and look through it. And you're never going to mistake a $1 bill for a $20 bill. Okay. And so this money consciousness grid, I had you take a look at the experience for yourself, your ministering team, your leadership, and your congregation. And I'm going to use that again here in just a moment and walk you through a few questions. So keep that handy. So where does this come from? Where is the source of our money beliefs? And really it's all the things that happen to us around money as we're growing up, and some really, really old messages. So when I do the Emotion of Money workshop, I actually have people go back to their very first experience of money, and their very first experience of saving, their first experience of spending, and that's all very telling for them in terms of how they grow in to their experience of money. I'm hearing a lot of sound. I'm wondering, I think it's Teresa's phone. So Teresa, I'm just going to, okay, there you go, thanks. So the source of our money beliefs are often really quite deep. And so what's really important to remember is this, if the source of our money beliefs are deep, so is it for everyone else. So when someone's presenting a either highly positive or highly negative or surprising experience of money verbally or through their actions or unspoken words in front of you, know that their source of their money beliefs are also very old. So how did our families deal with money? Who in our family was the spender? Who was the saver? And are we more like the spender or are we more like the saver? Do we have this belief around we need to work hard, and working hard equals that we deserve money? Or is there a deserving word that is unspoken or spoken or is part of our beliefs around money? And therefore we need to work hard. And so sometimes, you know, centers can be clicking along and all of a sudden the bequest comes in and they get a whole bunch of money. And then you think, well, that's a great thing, right? And it can turn them into turmoil. It can turn them into drama. It can create all kinds of things. Yet it's supposed to have been a good thing, but they didn't work hard for it because it came in all of a sudden, and then that throws people into all kinds of weird places, and their old money beliefs start to rise up. And so down in the bottom here, we've got these people, I'm thinking they're concerned about their investments. So there's a lot of people retiring, people are living longer, people are retiring with very different experiences. We have people retiring in our communities who are quite well off and can, live into their 90s and 100s and no problem. And then you've got a group of people retiring or not being able to retire or stop working. And all of these experiences are very likely to show up in our congregant community. So such a wide variety. I'm going to dig in very gently here because this is not a full workshop. It's just our time together. So the things that really hold us back in terms of being able to have a high consciousness or a clear positive consciousness with money is shame and vulnerability. And what happens is that when we have shame about not having money or shame about having too much money, this concept does not matter if we have money or don't. So either way, we can end up in that black box of doubt, that dark box of doubt around ourselves and around our judgments, around our usage of money. And that comes from either having shame around too much money, so we must hide this, or not enough money and what that has meant in our money history or currently. And then that creates a vulnerability for us. So if we have shame around money, then it drives our behavior and decision making around money. So if we have shame that we don't have enough money, then we're going to have a set of behaviors that we take into being a board member, that we take into being a minister, that we take into being a congregant. And if we had shame that we had a lot of money and we brought that in, that would show up as well. Either way, on both ends of the spectrum, in terms of money availability in our lives, we can still end up feeling vulnerable that we are going to spend too much, or that we're not going to be viewed positively because of the money situation, or that we're going to have our money taken from us, or too much is going to be used. So it's very, it can be very paralyzing for people to go through this experience of being in congregant community and serving in a capacity, and then being called to address our money issues, or not even knowing that we have them and having them show up. And it shows up where you see doubt or an inability to move forward, or an inability to make decisions, inability to achieve consensus. And then you know that there's stuff in there behind. Great opportunity to do that. Money is exercise. And bottom line, it's difficult to change our relationship with money when we have any sort of unhealed shame or vulnerability. That is the stop right there. If you see someone making the same decisions or having the same concerns about money in the community, then you know that you've got to go after the unpacking of the shame and the vulnerability around it and get to that. And that is the pathway through changing the consciousness to money. Now, the good thing to know is that our money consciousness is a habit. It's created of all those habits that we have around money that have been created through our life. So we can move through that unhealed shame and vulnerability through opportunities that provide us with a reflection experience, an opportunity to observe, an opportunity to practice something different safely and support in the environment. So maybe there's some things in your environment around money that you would like to see changed. Maybe there's a particular area in that grid where you think you'd like to focus on. So I'm going to just stop our share here for a moment. I'm going to ask you to pull out the grid. Does anyone have a question about those slides? It may not be surprising to you that is the source or that is the why, but maybe you've not seen it quite put that way, or maybe you've already been working on this in your community. Any comments from the group before we move into the grid? Yes, Cassandra?
I mean, I just thought they were really, really helpful, and it went a little bit fast.
Yeah.
I couldn't catch all of it, so I know that you'll provide those slides for us after. Yeah.
And the recording. Yeah. And the interesting thing about, when I'm preparing for the 90-minute sessions we have, and I'm looking at, having community conversation and then being able to do our topic, I think we could have like a day on each one of these. Maybe we need to gather for 10 days, really, right? So I'm happy to go into any of them too, and to do a coaching session around anything that stands out. And yes, I'll send the slides. So grab your grid, and I have a series of questions. And I'd like you to, for each of the questions, go through the 4 and go with your gut. So go with the first thing that comes up. If you find yourself questioning or analyzing, make a little note to go back to it later, because maybe you need to have a conversation with someone or you need to think more deeply about it. But for the most part, I'd like you to go with your first response because it's usually the most accurate. Okay? So looking at these 4 perspectives, these 4 groups inside your community, in terms of the money consciousness, and this is your assessment of the money consciousness, I'd like to give you a scale between 1 and 10. So if you're going to give it a high number, like closer to 10, it's like, I think things are okay with this group. I don't think there's any money issue that needs to be addressed or talked about. And this group over here is a 4. I think there's something that's stalling them, or we don't have the right people in there, or. So just go ahead and put 4 numbers in there. Your first gut instinct, 10 being high, 1 being low. So your analytical assessment, you're not going to have to share this. This is just for your own reflection. So your assessment, your comfort with their money consciousness. So going from me to my ministering team, my leadership team, and my congregant community. Okay, so next what I'd like you to do is, because of this number that you have assigned to each of these 4 groups, what do you believe that they value highest? What do they hold most valuable about the idea of money? What do they value? So this group is a 4 because I know that they value conservativeness. I know that they value hard work and it's stopping them. They're a 4. This group is an 8. I know they value outreach. I know they value reputation. So there's not going to be wrong words here, whatever comes to mind that leads you to that number. So it can be just as simple as one word, a value. What does this group value? Okay. Let's go back through the 4 sections of the grid again and make note if you are aware of any obstacle. Is there an obstacle around money or the consciousness of money for any of these 4 groups? So just travel around the 4 and note there may not be obstacles for all 4, but just if there is, it comes to mind pretty quickly usually. And sometimes the obstacles are awareness or knowledge. There can be dissension or contention in the group, maybe disagreement. It can be a personality situation. It can be history. So whatever the obstacle is, if there is one, go ahead and document it. Okay, and then staying with the negative side of things for this one last question, go around the 4 again and notice if there is anything that you're aware of that they fear. And the fear may be different than the obstacle. So is there something that you think this group is afraid of that keeps them in that place of their money consciousness? Next, let's lock into any desire that you feel that they have. What does this group have as a desire, an outcome, a goal, something that they would like to have despite any money situation? What do you know that they would like to have? And it might be their reason to exist, or it might be something they want to see happen that could be tangible, like an event or a purchase, or maybe they just want to feel more comfortable. What do they desire? So go ahead and go around the grid again. Okay, next go around the grid and look at if there's anything in the group that needs to be healed. Okay, the last couple of items here. Is there anything that the group is working on? And I know there's a me in there too. Is there anything that they're working on around their money consciousness? Something that you know that they are actively working on. So just make note of that. Maybe they're working on something, they don't even know that they're working on it, but you're seeing them work on it. So what is your congregation working on in terms of money consciousness? What is your ministerial group, your leadership group? What are you working on in terms of your own money consciousness? Okay, last couple of items here. What remains unsaid? What is currently unspoken or unsaid around money consciousness in each of these 4 areas? So what is unsaid? If there's something that could be said, go ahead and take note of that. Unsaid, unspoken. Okay, and the last item. If there was one thing that it could improve the money consciousness, even just one mark up the dial, what is one thing that could be done to improve the money consciousness experience for each of these groups? Okay. I'm going to go back to sharing the screen here. And so we looked at how money consciousness is a habit. So with this grid, we call out all kinds of different opportunities where we can either help others or ourselves reflect on something, help them observe something differently, put into practice something that can encourage that dial to move, or provide support in areas where it's needed. We are in an experience right now, and this slide and the next one is derived from some of the work from Lynn Twist from The Soul of Money. Excellent book, and you can find her on YouTube if you're not aware of her. And so we are moving from this idea of you or me economy to a you and me economy. This idea that we're moving from I can make it at your expense or you make it at my expense, but we both can't make it, to this idea in our society that there's room for everyone. And you can see this in the growth of social enterprise and in the growth of global awareness and inclusion, and wanting to look at new sources and different ways to include other groups of people, and sharing and merging and connecting with other groups in order to make something happen. So this idea that we are part of this you and me economy that's moving forward, and I see Centers for Spiritual Living as part of that movement for sure, just in our philosophy and in the way that we work with organizations and in outreach. And so Lynn Twist talks about these 3 myths of scarcity. And so notice in the 4 parts of your grid, if something like there's not enough came up, or more is better, Or a very favorite one that I've seen that I call part of the financial bypass. We have spiritual bypass. I believe we have operational bypass, conflict bypass. We have financial bypass. That's just the way it is. And we've always been this way. And so this is who we are. And this is the way that it's going to be. So you may see those showing up. And so how do we grow our money consciousness? Well, I've put it together here in an acronym. And it is gratitude, reciprocity, optimism, and willingness. So I'd like you to take a look at your grid and just notice as I read these, could one of the areas benefit from one of these 4 tenets of growing your money consciousness? So in a particular area, is there an area that would benefit from expressing more gratitude? People find themselves in lack, and we want to think about, okay, what do we need to do to get more? But dropping down into gratitude actually gets the wheel going of the reciprocity process. And it helps us to cultivate opportunities to be thankful and helps us participate in working through our vulnerabilities by feeling grateful. So we're not able to feel vulnerable and shame if we're feeling grateful. So that practice of gratitude tends to bring more around. And the fact that we are participating in a giving and receiving. So does someone in that group in your grid look like they are more givers, or are they always wanting to receive? So could they benefit from some habit work around reciprocity? Optimism, so practicing affirmative thinking in money matters. And this is not blind faith. This is affirmative thinking, which always includes a move your feet. And therefore we go into a place of willingness, where we as role models demonstrated openness to new ideas, new ways to connect with our community, new ways to do outreach, new ways to be out even in the business community, or bring new ways of generating business into our environment with new ideas and activities. And in this way, we demonstrate through willingness. So when you look at your grid and you look at the idea that there's a model of grow to help with the money consciousness, this is a lot of information that's come to you tonight. So I'd just like to hear from you. I'm going to stop with the sharing right now. Just like to hear from you. Is there anything that's percolating? What is percolating up to kind of be addressed or acted on, or something that you're thinking, you know, I think we're gonna look at doing something like this, or I want to dig deeper into this with my community now that I've seen this. So I see Karen's nodding. You want to start us off, Karen, as we wrap up?
Yeah, sure. So for me, the area that came up is the leadership, our leadership council. And interestingly enough, when we went through obstacles, you said obstacles, trust came up. That's interesting. And so we are under contract to sell our campus. And so there's this big influx of money coming. And I think what I want to go ahead and start the conversation is like, how are we going to, handle tithing? How much of it are we going to invest in the new property? Are we going to go to, and have those conversations now, half the year before it happens? And so that's what I want to do a session on.
Great.
Helpful. When it just came up so clearly, that was
yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I want to draw your attention, actually, Karen has introduced me to more work done by the Sacred Days team. And so if you looking for worksheets and exercises, Sacred Days is a beautiful website. And they use the Michael Beckwith 4 Kingdoms of Consciousness. Now notice in the grid that we just did, that if we were to have something that was, so the 4 kingdoms the world is happening to me. So who's in Kingdom 1 consciousness in there, right? And the world is happening by me, Kingdom 2. Where am I able to have influence and exercise? Kingdom 3, the world is happening through me. So I am part of this one mind, and I am very, very aware that, I'm one piece of everything, and I'm confident that things flow through me. And then as me. So this is just done. It's absolutely demonstrated. It's absolutely manifest. So, where are people feeling like they might be in kingdom one, the world is happening to me versus by me versus through me versus as me? That's a good thing, I think, to layer over this if you have any interest in that in Sacred Days. Okay. So anything else popping out here that you think, oh, I need to go away from this session and kind of think a bit? For sure. Money and all this talk will do that. But here's an area that I definitely want to dig into or address. Stephanie, want to share? Stephanie looks like she might want to share, but she's maybe a little cautious about sharing. But there's something there. I can see it in your face, dear.
Well, in looking at the grid, most of the numbers are decent, but the ministering team it's a black hole on this chart. And there's a lot of shame and fear, and I know I can walk into the senior minister's office and say, can we talk about these things? But I don't know how far I can go with her, how far I can take her before we fall off the edge. So yeah, I'm looking at this and seeing really where, unfortunately, our limitation is right now. I'm hoping some things will change, like radically change this Sunday, just with this discussion with the practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
But this is kind of scary for me to look at right now.
Mm. And it is bit by bit. You won't fall off the edge, but you might hit the wall. But then the wall's been moved because you hit it, by the way. And the next time it moves. Yes, Karen? Oh, you're going to go?
I gotta go. I'm sorry.
Okay. We're heading off shortly, too. See you later, and catch us on the recording at the end here. Okay. So anything pop out here? What has popped out for you that you think, I'd like to go away and take a look at this? I feel really called to ask Tammy, by the way. And Tammy's looking at me like, I'd really like it if you didn't ask me.
Yeah, you caught that, did you?
Okay.
Well, for me, the biggest thing, it always comes down to myself. So the myself box, looking at where my consciousness is around money and where my shame is around money, because I feel like that word, when you said that word, it was like, oh. So I know there's some stuff there. And so, yeah, I know I have some learning and growth to do in that. And I think a big part of it for me is the feeling like I don't do it well enough, that I don't do the whole money thing well enough. And to be honest, I know in my rational mind that is simply not the truth. But that's been a learned thing for me. So that's definitely a generational family kind of thing. And so
I'm hearing some habit language come up.
Habit language.
I'm hearing some habit language. So that if things have happened more than once, then we're going to call them a habit, right?
Yeah.
And so the great thing about a habit is if we can view this as a habit, then it can kind of be like, oh, look, that's a habit. And so if it's habit, it's because I've done it so many times. So if I start to do something else or try a different way of thinking or catch myself through reflection, observation, and then the practicing something different and asking for support around it. Steph, every time I say this, can you go, you said it again? I don't know if you want to give her that much power, but between you as a couple. But so, just this idea that reducing anything to the idea of a habit seems to really reduce its power too, and it seems more like we can act.
Yeah, so it doesn't become a failure, it becomes just a habit.
I just did it the old way. Don't do it the new way today. Yes, Cassandra.
Well, that process, and thank you, Tammy, and for everyone for sharing so candidly about it, because it's challenging. I see so many areas for me to invest some time and energy in, because of this conversation. And I think my main, like, what will you do is centered around like neutralizing it. Like neutralizing my perception of money. Like if I can take the value judgments off of it, then it's not as big and scary. And the more I can just be observant and neutral without an emotional charge to it, the easier it seems like it is to identify my own growing edge, and also to be more willing to observe the growing edge of people in my leadership team or people that are there. Sometimes we do need to call something out or up in a room and in our teams, and it's so challenging. However, when I can neutralize it, it's easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we notice ourselves reacting before we even speak, then we know that there's even something there for us. So then when we see someone or we sit across the table from someone that's having a reaction too, we also know that there must be something behind all that for them too. So some of what I've provided tonight should give you a bit of insight. This is sort of, for some of us, continuing a conversation, for some of us, opening a conversation, and for some of us, some new ideas or some extra pieces to add to the toolkit. So I will slim down the slide deck and send you that. And if you are going to do any sort of program or workshop or conversation with people and you want a little extra support ahead of time, then just book something with me and we'll get some time together and get you prepared. And because these conversations are so valuable, but are some of the scariest for us and the people in that grid. Yeah. Okay. So I think we'll call this a close tonight here. And if there are any questions, I would love to hear from you. I'm going to send out these documents. We're meeting again on February 21st. Our next topic is seeing the congregant as customer. So I'll be preparing a customer service survey that you can use in your environment. And you're like, I don't know that I want that. Hello, baby. We have a visitor. I want to talk money. I'd like a nice new little collar. Oh, I'd like a new jacket. Mommy, can we get a new jacket? There you go. I'm clearly missing my own animal. So let's close off with with just a brief closing treatment here. Just allowing ourselves to relax right where we are and just knowing that this experience and this content and this conversation tonight has been so important and is important in our environment, is important in our minds, is important with the people we work with, is important in our community. And so sending us all off with blessings and knowing that this experience and the continued learning just moves us forward to be more comfortable and more comfortable and more comfortable in whatever discomfort may come around for us. And so just expressing thanks for this time we were able to spend together and releasing all into the universal divine. Just having a wonderful, wonderful close out with us. And as we release, simply saying, and so it is. And so it is. Okay, I'm going to stop our recording here. For everyone who is seeing us on the recording, good night.
Good night.